What is up YouTube, and welcome to this Loki series episode 1 and 2 spoiler-free review. I will have a full breakdown and Easter eggs video up on the channel when the show drops on Disney+, because oh man, there are a lot of Easter eggs and spoilery things that are going to be fun to talk about. But Loki is following the events of, Loki, after he stole the Tesseract when the Avengers messed with time and, Loki got free. It picks up directly after this in that split timeline, and Loki's on the run but is then put in the care of the pesky time variant authority and having to help them find, I won't say as it's a spoiler, sweetie, but what the heck is the TVA? In brief, the Time Variance Authority were created by the Timekeepers, and while there are a few changes from the comics, I will discuss that in my full breakdown. They do oversee all of time with the Justices, Minutemen, Analysts, Agents and Hunters all doing their bidding to prune errant timelines. Of course, our boy Loki has caused chaos once again by setting a new timeline, but Mr. Agent Mobius, who I have a full comic history on my channel, does recruit him, and we get the start of a pretty funny buddy cop story for the first 2 episodes. Now, Tom Hiddleston's Loki is hilarious, butting heads with a group of people even more ridiculous to the common man than Asgardian gods, and even more ridiculous to an Asgardian god. The whole thing smacks of a 70s or 80s cop movie, and while a comparison to Lethal Weapon or 48 Hours is lazy, there are those tinges with Owen Wilson being a superb straight man, but somewhat maverick time cop. We got to walk the halls of the Null time zone when the Fantastic Four met Mobius, as well as the trial of She-Hulk. But the wacky, crazy HQ of the TVA is realised so very well here, and it looks simply stunning. It has a 70s aesthetic, which I think looks so neat, up against the wackiness of messing with time, and is arguably the biggest and most powerful thing within the MCU to date. I mean, even the God of Mischief was absolutely awestruck at the power that the TVA do wield. The move to TV has allowed the MCU to be far more creative, and we get a full-on Mr. DNA Jurassic Park style animation, but here we do have Miss Minutes, who sounds very much like Dolly Parton, exploring the history and creation of the Authority and the wider universe. We get further explanations of how timelines work in the MCU, which is going to be a lot of fun, but due to spoilers, I will discuss that more later on. Now, what makes this show fun and why the chemistry between Owen Wilson and Tom Hiddleston is that we have the Loki directly post-Battle of New York, and it was fun seeing the over-the-top power-hungry God of Mischief again, and while in this he does kinda go down the redemption path after an intense therapy session with Mobius, albeit you shouldn't actually trust him as always. It was nice for some fan service here once more. Now, the sacrifice was not for nothing, as in this, that whole arc, including Ragnarok, is still there. But this is a variant Loki, and just like the villain, it allows Loki to play in a sandbox free of consequences to the timeline. It's almost like a what if, and a hell of a lot of fun. While WandaVision was notably lambasted for being very slow, and Falcon and the Winter Soldier's first episode at least was pretty slow as well, the reveals were also incredibly slow in both of these. Despite both of them being very good, Loki does do something very different, but what else would we expect from the Asgardian? The exposition, big bad, and rules of the show, not to mention huge hints of the multiverse and how the MCU timeline came to be, with a theory I am chomping at the bit to present to you. It's a world away from WandaVision's surreal episode of Falcon's world building and catching up. We know who Loki is and what makes him tick. We can skip that and get to the fun stuff, the insane, wider cosmic and multiverse building that feeds off the threads shown in WandaVision. This makes for a much more fast-paced experience for the MCU and comic diehards thirsty for that sweet lore. This is because Kevin Feige seems to like doing what we've had so far, and that is merge many different storylines And here we have things like the trial of the She-Hulk, the Fantastic Four and their first encounters with the TVA, along with Thor's first encounters, and stories like Loki, Agent of Asgard. The TVA have had a long and admittedly very, very convoluted history if we do get the Time Twisters involved as well, and it's been distilled neatly here and adds a supporting cast with actors from Lovecraft Country and The Good Place as they work well, adding further spice to this incredibly fun MCU crime procedural drama. The time jumping, and that is pretty cool, especially with the villain of the piece, makes for a thrilling watch. As of the end of episode 2, it seems we are due a huge turn on its head for the story. While the messing with the time trope is incredibly a slippery slope and can be abused, timelines do seem to be here a stand-in for more traditional multiverse, increasingly in the MCU, and time does seem to be very protected. It's a protected story narrative device and not, hopefully, going to be abused like other comic book adaptations. Overall, Tom Hiddleston's pure charm as the wannabe King Loki, thrust into an admittedly level above anything we've seen in the MCU, is a pure joy, but everything else around it complements it well as a complete package, and it is the most well-rounded of the MCU shows to date, and I absolutely adored it. So let me know what you think, what are your theories going into this, and if you're joining me after the first 2 episodes have aired, then let me know your thoughts and theories here. So please do drop a like if you enjoyed the video, and do subscribe with notifications on if you want more from us, and I'll see you soon. I hope you have an amazing day, and I'll see you soon, and goodbye.